Hi everyone. I hope God's been blessing you today. Today is January 20th, 2023, and I'm going to pick up where I left off when I finally got a hold of my father and I had found my father's sister and my cousins. And where I left off in the last video is I had was calling him to actually meet him on the phone. And so I'm going to start off there. So, this was probably 1995. I'm gonna say it was probably like maybe the end of 95 or the beginning of 96 when I finally found um, my family, my dad's side, and I had gotten in touch with him. And so at this time, we had talked on the phone and we had made plans for me to go see him for 2 weeks with the boys. And it was going to be like a 2 week vacation. My dad has been living in Las Vegas this whole time, and he wanted me to come out there to meet him, and he wanted to meet his grandchildren. And I was very excited to meet my dad for the first time. I was probably about 23, 24 now, and I had never met him. So I was excited, but I was also nervous. I was a little bit scared because, he's like literally a stranger. I don't know this man at all. And I had only talked to him a couple times before it was time to go, on the vacation. And so, I was a little bit nervous, but, I had the kids with me and, I don't know, I just wanted them to meet their grandfather and I wanted to meet my dad. So it seemed to have go really well. We had taken, plane trip there, and the kids were excited, and they were so little though, but they were still excited to go on the plane. And the airline was very nice to the kids. And we get to the airport in Las Vegas, and I don't really know what my dad looks like. I just know that I think he said he had gray hair and it was long, and so I was kind of looking for someone that, kind of fit that. But obviously he knew I was coming with two little kids, so it would be easier for him to find me coming off the plane. And so when we get all the way to the end of, the to get off the plane, I see a sign. My dad's got a sign that says Tracy. And so I walk over, and, the first thing that my dad says to me is, which was actually pretty shocking at the time, but when I think about it now, it was kind of funny. He said, "Wow, you're fatter than I thought you would be." And I said back, "Well, you're not a skinny man yourself, so I must take after you then." And then we both started laughing, and then he gave me a big hug. And we headed to the luggage and got all the luggage and stuff, and we got to his truck. And when we got into, the vehicle, we had everything in there. And right away, when we started to take off, he said to me, "Okay, this is your chance to yell at me if you want to, tell me whatever you want to, all of the feelings that you've probably been holding in your whole life. I'm giving you this opportunity right now to say what you want to say to me, because it's going to take us a while to get to my house, and I just want you to know that you need to do it now, because after you're done, I'm not going to say anything. I'm going to let you say whatever you want, and then that's it. We're not going to go back over that." And funny thing is like I never really had any bad feelings about my dad. My mom didn't really talk about my father, so I didn't really have any bad feelings. But I will say this, the only thing that I wanted to know is if my mom had told me the truth. So I said, "I only have one question for you. Did you really leave us and tell, me and my brother that you were going to get us Disney tickets, and then you never came back home?" And he immediately said, "No, that's not what happened. Um, are you ready to listen to my side?" And I said, "Yes." And so he said, "Your mom and I moved to Las Vegas. when you guys were really little, and your mom didn't like it in Las Vegas. You know, she hated the weather, and she missed her mother, and she wanted to go back to Rhode Island. And she kept pressuring me to go back to Rhode Island, but I didn't want to go back to Rhode Island. I really wanted to be in Las Vegas, as that's where my family was. And most of the time we were with her family, and I wanted to be with my family. And I wanted my family to know you guys, but she kept, complaining and everything. And she said that she was going to leave. And so I told her if she left, I wasn't going back. And so if she left, she was leaving. And that was going to be her choice. But that I didn't want her to leave. I loved her and I loved you guys, but I didn't want her to leave. But she said no, she was going back to live with, her mom and everything. And so, I will say this, that was probably, it was very honest. My dad was being very honest, and it was probably hard for him to say. But that was his side of the story. Remember, I wasn't there. Well, I was there. I was like, I don't know, under 2, but I mean, I don't remember any of it. And so I can't say for certain if my mom is lying or my dad's lying. So I'm just going to assume that's his side, and whatever. I'm not going to say anything. I'm not going to say anything else about it. And then he also tells me that the reason he wasn't worried about my mom leaving was because he loved my mom. He knew my mom was really good with money. He said she was a great mother, and he wasn't really that great. He said that he didn't think he was that great, and he wasn't great with money. And he said, whatever, I figured letting your mom go and her raising you alone would be better than me coming in and out of your life. Whenever I decided to do that, I didn't want to hurt you guys, so I stayed away. And I said, okay, that's, thank you for telling me, and everything. But I didn't really talk anything else about it. That was pretty much the only thing I wanted to know. So now we get to his house, and I meet his wife, and she's super nice, very, very warm, loving person. And she made me feel very welcome. She was loving on the kids and all that stuff. And so she was, very nice woman. So during the 2 weeks that I'm there, I start to notice right away that my dad works really long hours. Like, he leaves really early in the morning while I'm there, and he doesn't come home, till, it's dark out. And I noticed that his wife's there alone all day, all by herself. Obviously, we're there right now, but what if we were not there? Then she's all by herself all day long. And I noticed that, she drinks a lot, and she's not really eating a lot. And she's skinny, very skinny. And then, my dad would come home, and then the sad thing is they would usually fight when he would get home. And of course, I don't know these people. And so, they're yelling at each other, and I'm in the bedroom that they let me use with the kids, and I'm trying to like talk to the kids and keep them occupied while they're in there yelling. And I hear, her yelling at him about going to the casino and always spending his money at the casino and coming home drunk, and she's sick of it and all this stuff. And, obviously that's not good, always spending your money, wasting it gambling and stuff. So, there's a flag, a red flag for me. I'm like, oh, all right, so he's a gambler, which, I mean, he lives in Las Vegas. So then I'm thinking to myself, what did he have that kind of problem when he was with my mom? Is that why my mom left? Like, was he gambling when my mom was here with us, and that's why she wanted to leave? So now I'm like asking myself these questions, but I'm not saying anything, and I'm pretty quiet, most of the time that I'm there. Just, doing what I do with my kids if I was at home, feeding them and all this stuff. And so one particular evening while I'm there, my dad comes home, and it's pretty late. And I'm not gonna forget this. Like, I'm gonna assume he was probably at the casino, because the minute he comes home, he hands, his wife some cash. I see him hand her some cash. And right away she's like, "This is it? This is all you have?" And I'm pretty sure one of the bills was $100 bill. And I don't know this at the time. Like, I just assume this after what happens. So what does she do? She's super annoyed, and she takes the $100 bill and she runs to the bathroom and she flushes it down the toilet. And my dad starts freaking out, and he's yelling at her, "Why did you do that?" And she's like, "That's what you're doing all the time. You're just flushing your money away when you're at the casino." And of course, they get into a huge fight. And I'm back in that bedroom, trying to got some music on for my kids and trying to keep them, like, preoccupied, because to be perfectly honest, I'm used to living with my mom. And usually when my mom gets mad, she doesn't talk. She doesn't yell. So this is all new for me. And I'm like, I was very uncomfortable. I didn't know if I was supposed to, like, kind of get involved and kind of try to help, or just mind my own business. So I just kept staying in that room until they were done, like, yelling at each other and stuff. So now the next day, when my dad goes to work, I talk to I guess she'd be my stepmom. So I talk to her and I tell her, like, "What's going on? Like, is this normal? Like, are you guys always fighting like this?" And then she was explaining to me that, my dad's had a gambling problem for a long time. She's been with him for years and years and years. And, they don't really, they just are living on pretty much like beer and cigarettes. Like, that's pretty much all I ever see her. Like, that's all she's doing, is drinking and smoking. And then he comes home and then he's drinking. So I never see them so far. It's been like a week, and I don't see them making any food, or anything like that. Like, pretty much, like, me and the kids are just eating. I've got food for the kids, but I'm eating like lunch meat and stuff, that she had bought. And so, which wasn't a big deal, because when I'm by myself with the kids most of the time, and I don't have a lot of money, so I know what it's like to not really have a lot of food. It's funny, because I start to think about my mom, and I start to be like, wow, these are must have, like, I wonder if my dad was doing this same stuff to my mom. Like, I wouldn't have wanted to put up with that either. And so, especially with her having two small kids, she probably was like, "Yeah, I'm not dealing with this." And so maybe that's why my mom left. I don't know, but I'm gonna ask my mom, questions when I get home, because first of all, my mom's pissed off at me anyway, because I wanted to find my dad. Then when I did find my dad, then she's mad because I'm going to see my dad. And looking back at it now, I can kind of understand that, because she's probably like, "What the hell? I'm the one that did everything for you. I busted my butt, working and, providing for you too. And he didn't really help with child support and everything." And she probably was, upset, thinking that, you know, here he is not doing anything, and I'm gonna go and have a relationship with him. And she's the one that really, like, worked really hard, and maybe she was thinking it's not fair because I don't really have a good relationship with her. Besides, remember, my brother had already passed away, and that's something I had to tell my dad as well when I had got there, because when we were in high school, I remember talking to my brother, like, "Don't you want to know, like, our dad?" And he's like, "No." he never wanted to find him or anything. And maybe it's a girl thing. Maybe it's because I was a girl. Um, and maybe it's because he had a really good relationship with my mom. See, that's the other thing. Maybe if my brother didn't have a good relationship with my mom, like me, then maybe he would have wanted to find my dad. Um, but I don't know. I guess, eventually that'd be nice to know, but he never really wanted to find my dad. And so, getting getting to meet my dad, I have to now tell him, because he did ask me about my brother, and I was like, well, I told him like how he was and everything. I told him that, he was gay and he lived in Florida, and he had a job. He was an artist, and he had a really good job, and he um just he was great, but that he ended up, dying. And my dad, I mean, obviously I'm looking like talking about this now, and I'm like, man, my dad really didn't have the kind of reaction that I would expect, but then but it is the right reaction because he didn't really know us. We're strangers to him. He's a stranger to me. Like, if we would die and he never knew us, would that even affect him? Probably not, because you don't really know your kid. And so he never really, I mean, he knew him as a little child. My brother was 4. So he was around him until he was 4. But I don't know, maybe it's different for guys. I'm not sure. Um, maybe when we start talking to each other, maybe if I have some, I would love to talk to, men and women that want to talk about their lives and stuff like this. And maybe someone else has gone through something like this, like I have, and had a totally different outcome. Like, that's what I think is awesome about being in a world with so many different people. And you know, we all have different stories and different trials that we've gone through, and worked on those trials differently. Used, me, I tried to lean, a lot back then on God and everything. I did, like I said, I didn't really have a relationship with God then, but I did believe in God. And so I did pray a lot. But let's get back to, here I am and all this stuff's going on. And I'm starting to think bad, starting to feel bad for my mom. I'm feeling bad for his new wife. I'm feeling bad for my dad. I'm feeling bad because I'm like, man, this is not a good way to live. Like, I wouldn't want to live the way that they were living. And then I start being like, I can't wait to go home. Now I have like another week, and I'm just like uncomfortable being there. And I just am counting down the days now, because now it's just a bunch of drama, and they're always arguing and yelling at each other. And if they're not doing that, they're drunk. And it's boring because you can't really go anywhere because my dad's in the one with a vehicle. And it was crazy. Thankfully, there was a park not too far from their house, and that's where I would go most of the day with the kids and play outside. But you couldn't go outside, Uh, I would say probably like most of the most of the afternoon was so hot. You had to be inside, and the air conditioner was so hot. Like, well, and maybe because we were from Rhode Island, but we couldn't breathe. So, I would bring the kids early in the morning to the park, and then like later when the sun would go down, we'd go to the park. So I do remember, we went, I remember my dad said, oh, this weekend we're going to go and see your uncles. And and you're going to get to meet them and everything. Those were his brothers. And I was excited about that because I wanted to meet more of my family on that side. And so I was looking forward to, going to meet them, and we ended up going to his house, and I was like completely shocked. My older uncle was totally different than my dad. Like, he had a huge house, like, they had great jobs. Him and his wife had great jobs. That you could tell they had a lot of money. And then another uncle of mine who was younger, he lived there with them at the time. And I really got along really well with all of them. They were very nice and kind of funny. I actually think like I looked more like my uncle that owned that house than I did my dad. So obviously I definitely came from that part of the family because I was like, wow, I kind of look like this guy. And so it was great. We had a great time there. I will say that out of the whole time, the whole 2 weeks, sadly, that was like my favorite time, was going there and hanging out with them for that weekend. And then, now it's time. I'm gonna move ahead. Now it's time, I'm getting ready to go back home. And I remember saying to my dad, like, do you want to stay in touch? Like, do you want to like talk to each other and get to know each other and stuff? Because, we're practically strangers. And he was like, I would love that. I would love to get to know you. And I was like, that's great. I said, so good. We'll stay in touch with each other. We'll call each other and everything. And that'd be, get to know each other. Maybe you could come out, to Rhode Island and see me and the kids, or maybe I can come back here. And, I really thought that was gonna be it. I thought we were gonna like stay in touch, but I'll tell you, neither one of us did it. Like, the beginning, when I first went back, I was the one calling him like all the time. I would call him at least like once or twice a month, and I would ask like what's going on, talk to his wife, and everything. Yeah, but I would start to notice that if I didn't call, he wasn't calling me. Well, then of course resentment starts creeping in, and sadly I have my mother's stubbornness when it comes to some things. So now I'm mad. Now I'm like, well, I'm not going to call back until he calls me. Like, he can call me sometimes. It's not always me that's going to be the one to call. Well, sadly, when you aren't around somebody for so long, I mean, I'm now like, it's been years, and we only saw each other once. So it's not like you have that connection of, oh, I can't go without seeing my daughter ever again. I was a stranger, he was a stranger, and we pretty much went back to our lives and forgot about each other, I guess, and years had gone by, at least like 10 years had gone by, and we didn't talk to each other. And though I will say that I did stay in contact with my aunt who did live in Rhode Island, and my cousins and stuff, but I would hear things, she'd tell me, oh, your dad's doing this and that, and or how my uncles were and stuff like that. But I didn't really like call a lot anymore. I was, dumb and being stubborn, stuff like that. So, what are you gonna do? Things happen. So I'm not going to make this video long because I just kind of wanted to talk a little bit about my dad and like the relationship and what happened. And so I'm probably going to end the video here. And, I'm sure there's going to be other videos that's going to have more information about my dad. I definitely know there's other stuff that happens later in life, but right now, this is where I'm going to end it. I want to thank everybody who has been, watching my videos and coming on this journey with me. I truly appreciate your support. I know everyone's time is important, and you don't have to watch my videos, you know, there's, we have so much stuff that we have to do nowadays, you know, as parents and husbands and wives and everything, so I truly appreciate it if you are taking the time to watch these videos, and I hope that we can get to know each other along the way, and I hope you have a blessed day, and I'll see you on the next video.